Imagine waking up every morning with joints so swollen and painful that even buttoning a shirt feels impossible. Yet, you still choose to spend your day hunched over delicate instruments, determined to uncover mysteries in chemistry. This was the world of Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin, a woman who refused to be defined by pain or limited by the expectations of her time.
Intro! Do. So Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkins, right?
Hodgkin?
Hodgkin. I've been watching too much Bones, and there's a character named Hodgins in it, not really like him. But Dorothy Crowfoot Hodgkin was born in 1910 in Cairo, Egypt. Her mother Mary and her father John had met in Lincoln, England, but had moved to North Africa for John's participation in the British administration of Egypt as a civil servant in the Department of Education. I'm pretty sure there's a long way in saying that he was like an archaeologist or something.
Mm-hmm.
June. John soon moved to Sudan, where he became the director of education and of antiquities. At the time, Sudan was called the Sudan because it was still under the control of Egypt. I don't know why the makes it under the control of Egypt.
I'm surprised they didn't rename it or something. I don't know. I feel like when like a country takes its independence, like sometimes, well, not all the time, because like Czechoslovakia is now Czech and Slovakia, so like the Sudan is now just Sudan. But
the Sudan,
yeah, Sudan. Tomato.
But Dorothy visited the Sudan in 1923 when she was 13 and found a love for the country. John retired from the Sudan in 1926 and gave most of his time to archaeology. He worked for a little bit as the director of the British School of Archaeology in Jerusalem and then carried out excavations on Mount Ophel, I think that's how you pronounce it, at Jerash, Borsra, and Samaria. I don't know how to pronounce any of them. He did archaeology in Jerusalem.
Her mother, Grace Mary, was involved in John's work quite extensively, but she had her own specialty in early weaving techniques. She was a good botanist, and in her spare time would draw the illustrations to the official flora of the Sudan. Dorothy spent her break from school, basically like summer breaks, like where you get a season off, excavating at Jerash and drawing mosaic pavements. She enjoyed the experience so much that she considered giving up chemistry for archaeology.
Dorothy gained an interest in chemistry and in crystals at about the age of 10. She attended classes run by the Parents National Educated Union. The science syllabus had more to it than regular mainstream schools and had interesting practical work. In chemistry, Dorothy and her classmate made solutions of aluminum, right?
Probably. Yeah, this word said just alum, but I'm assuming it's like the same.
Aluminium, as they say in the British.
Yeah, funny coming from a British source.
Yeah, that and copper sulfate that eventually resulted in the formation of crystals. Dorothy stated, "I was captured by chemistry and by crystals."
Dorothy created a personal lab in the attic room of their family home in Beccles, Suffolk?
Suffolk.
She gathered natural history specimens and performed analyses on things like garden soil. Her interest was encouraged by a family friend, Dr. A.F. Joseph, who was a friend of her parents in the Sudan, who gave her chemicals and helped her during her time there to analyze ilmenite.
It's funny that he just, gave her chemicals.
Yeah. Ilmenite is basically a titanium iron oxide mineral that looks like a dark steel gray. It's actually widely used in paints, plastics, and sunscreen.
The majority of Dorothy's childhood was spent with her sisters at in Norfolk. There's Suffolk. I know Suffolk is pronounced like Suffolk. Norfolk, I think, is that one. I don't know what Geldeston. Anyways, she went to Sir John Leman School. Wow, the British words are really struggling today. Sir John Lehman. I'm saying Lehman School.
I think if you try saying it with a British accent.
Sir John Lemon School.
That must be it.
We do the rest of the podcast in a British accent. From 1921 to 1928. Dorothy and one other girl named Nora Poussey.
hope so.
Nora Pusey were allowed to join the boys studying chemistry. By the end of her time at school, Dorothy had decided to study chemistry and possibly biochemistry at the university.
Dorothy went to Oxford and Somerville College from 1928 to 1932. She had a love for archaeology still, however, and for a short time in her first year, she combined archaeology and chemistry by analyzing glass tessera, which is used in the formation of mosaics.
Is that where the word tesseract comes from?
I think so.
I love the tesseract. Oh my god, that's so cool. Okay, so if you have no idea where I just made that connection from, the tesseract is a cube that glows blue and is like the key to the universe in the Marvel comics. And I was obsessed with Marvel growing up, and Loki still am. Speaking of Loki, Loki is the guy who tries to steal the Tesseract. And the Tesseract's just a random made-up word. So I'm assuming it comes from the word tessera, which is involved in mosaics, because it looks like a piece of a mosaic. Sidetrack.
Beautiful. Well, she analyzed this class from Jerash with E. G. J. Hartley. I had a glitch there. She had attended a course in crystallography, and with guidance from her tutor, F. M. Brewer, she decided that she would do research in X-ray crystallography. X-ray crystallography involves X-rays being directed towards a crystal and diffracted into many specific directions in order to understand the atomic structure of the crystal. She began focusing on this when she started Part 2 of chemistry, where she worked with H. M. Powell as his first research student of thallium diacyl halides.
Dorothy went to Cambridge so that she could work with J.D. Bernal. Fun fact, she actually ended up getting a position accidentally by running into Dr. A.F. Joseph and Professor Lowry on a train where they discussed this topic. Bernal had lectured on metals in Oxford, and Dorothy had found this interesting. His work in 1932 was shifting towards the study of sterols, which was right up her alley, and thus settled her mind to go work with him. Sterols being like cholesterols and all of your like hormones. But she ended up spending 2 years in Cambridge, where she and Bernal studied various different experimental problems.
Her aunt, Dorothy Hood, had paid all of her college bills and continued to help finance her. It's like crazy.
Dorothy?
No, the fact that like she was paying all of her bills and it wasn't even like her mom. Like it's her aunt.
I see. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah, she also received a scholarship from Somerville, but regardless. In 1922, Somerville ended up giving her a research fellowship, where the first year would be at Cambridge and then the second year would be back at Oxford. She returned to Somerville and Oxford in 1934 and stayed there pretty much for the rest of her life, except for short trips, traveling, all that.
And in 1934, during her PhD, Dorothy first visited a consultant about the pain in her hands. The consultant observed ulnar deviation, which is the hand deformity caused by the swelling of the knuckle joints. He prescribed her rest, which Dorothy refused to listen to, in order to continue working on and finishing some of her experience. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I do that too. I have like severe back pain and I kind of just ignore it. Hee. I have seen a doctor about it, but they were just like...
Rest?
No, they just couldn't find a problem because they did an MRI and then they found like arthritis in my back, but the arthritis wasn't where I was describing the pain.
God damn.
They did find out that I am missing a pair of ribs and my sacrum is fused to my spine. I'm an anatomical anomaly.
Yippee! I know, it's cool that everybody, or most people, have anatomical like things that are different, but like you'll just never know if you don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool. Anyway, that same year, she returned to Oxford in 1934 and started to collect money for an X-ray apparatus with the help of Sir Robert Robinson. Later, she received research assistance from the Rockefeller and Nuffield Foundations. She continued the research that begun at Cambridge with Bernal on sterols and on other biologically interesting molecules such as insulin. She described discovering the molecular structure of insulin as an impossibly complex quest. It took her more than 3 decades to resolve the complete structure due to other priorities taking up her time. At first, she only had about 1 or 2 research students helping her. This research took place in Oxford until 1958, in various rooms within the university's museum.
And in 1937, in the middle of her research, she married Thomas Hodgkin, who was the son of a historian and a grandson of others.
like, they basically had a bunch of historians in his, like, lineage.
Oh, okay. I see. Anyways, his interest had been focused on history and politics on Africa and the Arab world. He was the director of the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, where part of Dorothy's own life was spent. In 1938, when she was 28, Dorothy had their first baby.
She also got an infection that triggered her first attack of rheumatoid arthritis. She stated, "I found I had great difficulty and pain in getting up and dressing. Every joint in my body seemed to be affected." After being treated for a few weeks at a clinic, Dorothy returned to the lab. She found that her hands had been so affected that she could no longer use the main switch of the X-ray equipment that was required in her experiments. Rather than letting this stop her, she had a long lever made for the switch and carried on with her research.
Really smart. I always feel like bad when, especially for like researchers and doctors, for like people who it takes so long for them to get their degree, and like by the time they actually get their degree, you can like work for like, I mean, I hope if you're going into something that takes that long, like you have a passion for it, you can only work for like 20 to 30 years, and then they start to get like old.
Yeah.
And then they start to like struggle to like complete like all the tasks. Like I remember there was a dermatologist that was like checking on me, and he brought out like a whole magnifying glass because he just couldn't work properly, and he had to have like the students like help him because he couldn't, like his hands were too shaky to like be able to do stuff. But I always feel really bad.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're passionate about their work. And
that's a lot of dedication, though.
Yeah.
What is crazy about like Dorothy in particular, though, is that she's experiencing these like old age issues, but she's only 28 year. Like this first attack. Oh my God,
you're so right.
So
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Damn. So, other than a small attack after the birth of her third child in 1946, arthritis does not appear to have held her back, so slay for her. But her determination to find the structure of compounds had helped her build an impressive portfolio of work. This included being the first to completely determine the structure of the complex organic molecule cholesterol by X-ray crystallography. Whenever her hands would hurt unbearably, she would take aspirin and put heat treatments on her hands before continuing.
In 1941, Dorothy was aware of the urgent and secret wartime effort to refine the use of antibiotics by determining the structure of penicillin. She took this as a personal challenge and solved the structure in 1945, coinciding with the end of World War II. She told J.D. Burnell, her past PhD supervisor and her good friend, about her breakthrough while sitting on the steps of the Royal Society. When he accurately predicted that Dorothy would receive the Nobel Prize for this work, she replied that she would rather her achievement allow her to be elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society. Burnell joked that that would be more difficult. Fun fact, she actually was elected as a Fellow in 1947 and received the Royal Medal in 1956, and then again the Order of Merit, which is another award, in 1965.
So did she end up getting the Nobel Prize for figuring out the structure of cholesterol?
No, for penicillin.
My brain is like turned off. Okay, so cholesterol, I low-key forgot to mention, if you are unaware what cholesterol is, it's really important for your cells to make sure the membranes don't like fall apart, and also it's like used in a bunch of other stuff. But too much cholesterol is bad, and it's why you have heart disease and other stuff. And then obviously penicillin is an antibiotic and like super important.
On the topic of antibiotics, real quick, if you're prescribed antibiotics, please
take the whole course.
Your whole course of antibiotics.
And then penicillin was found by accident, right? Penicillin, I'm pretty sure they just like left like a fruit out and it just molded. And then they were like, this is penicillin. They didn't know like the structure of it or anything like that, but they knew it worked. I feel like I remember reading about that.
I do not remember.
Yeah, I think that's how penicillin was found. I don't remember who found it, but they just like left a fruit out. I think they used to just like grow penicillin, like not like produce it like they make stuff.
I'm trying to remember what penicillin like fundamentally is, and I cannot.
Penicillin,
because it's not a mold or a fungi, is it?
I think it's a fungi. Antibiotic. Lactam antibodies, beta-lactam.
Or is that one of those things that like another organism produces to kill?
What is it?
Where penicillin derived from?
Penicillin is a mold. Yeah, okay, penicillin is a mold. Penicillium notum, Penicillium cryogenisum.
Yep. So the mold produces the penicillin, and then we take away its penicillin, and then we use the penicillin to kill the bacteria.
Yeah.
So again, take your antibiotics. You're not actually consuming mold.
But in addition to cholesterol and penicillin, which honestly, just finding one of those would have like made a scientist's entire career. She also found the structure of B12, which is such an important like immune molecule, and insights on other proteins. But B12 is really cool. Anyways, in 1969, she finally found the structure of insulin. Also insane. These are so many crazy important molecules. But regardless, when she was in her 50s, and then 3 decades of research led to 3 days of excitement where Dorothy and 2 of her research teams finally finished the model. Dorothy worked tirelessly despite the swelling in her ankles being so severe that she had to wear slippers while she worked.
Dude, I get like cranky when I get a tummy ache. I don't know how she did all of this.
That's insane. And also in a time when like real medicine didn't exist.
No.
And it doesn't seem like she's like, like sometimes back in the day I feel like they would just like take like opioids, the poppy seed, flower of the poppy. No, what is it? They would take a lot of poppy and just like kind of like numb themselves. It doesn't seem like she did any of that. She just worked through the pain.
She was an aspirin warrior.
Whooper.
In 1946, Dorothy Hodgkin took part in the meetings which led to the foundation of the International Union of Crystallography.
We have that?
I guess so.
Wow.
She visited several other countries for scientific purposes, including China, the USA, and the USSR at the time. She was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1947 and a foreign member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of the Sciences in 1956, and of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in Boston in 1958.
Dorothy spent most of her career as an official fellow and tutor in natural science at Somerville, where she mostly taught chemistry for women's colleges. She became a lecturer and demonstrator for the university in 1946 and a university reader in X-ray crystallography in 1956, and a Wolfson Research Professor of the Royal Society in 1960. At first, she worked in the Department of Mineralogy and Crystallography, where H.L. Bowman was professor, but in 1944 the department was split and Dr. Dorothy Crowfoot continued in the subdepartment of chemical crystallography.
She remains the only British woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize for Science, which happened in 1964. She was awarded as the sole recipient for chemistry for her determinations by X-ray techniques of the structures of important biochemical substances. Although she was already an internationally respected scientist, the award immediately and significantly increased Dorothy's commitments and invitations to attend and speak at conferences all around the world.
So, unlike a lot of the other women that we discussed who, like, received, like, no credit, like, pretty much at all, or no recognition, like, Dorothy actually got a lot of rewards and recognitions and a Nobel Prize.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the untold part of her story is that a lot of people didn't know the pain that she was working through, and also the insane, like, I don't even know how to describe, like, the amount of really important molecules she found. Like, I was saying earlier, like, just one of these would have, like, made a scientist, and she found, like, 4.
Right, like, she's well known for penicillin, but B12, cholesterol, insulin, not many people. I had no idea. Also, the whole, like, crystallography standards and stuff.
Yeah. So, despite her worsening arthritis, Dorothy gave her time and knowledge enthusiastically. She kept up a demanding global schedule for the rest of her life, and she'd often take her family members with her on trips. She used a wheelchair to move between sessions when walking became too painful for her.
I think the reason she brought the family members was as, like, support when her arthritis got too bad.
That makes sense.
But she retired from public life in 1988 and died in 1994. Her friend and collaborator, Max Perutz, said this about her at her memorial service. She radiated love for chemistry, her family, and her friends, her students, her crystals, and her college. Her love was combined with a brilliant mind and an iron will to succeed, regardless of her frail and later severely crippled body. There was a magic about her person.
And that is the story of Dorothy Hodgkin. The end. Yippee!